Hello, my lovely rose garden. This is Avalon.
And Ray.
And we're on chapter 15.
Oh, boy.
It's hopefully a short one. It looks pretty short.
Okay. Well, I mean, short being, in the eye of the beholder.
It's only so many pages, but how many years will it take off our lives? This question and more answered today.
Probably not. Probably never answered.
Another question that we should have answered is, why aren't you subscribed to our Patreon yet? You should definitely click on the link in the description and go to our Patreon. Even if you can't donate right now, at least follow us on there, because we do have some freebies for followers where you don't have to pay anything, but you do get a little bit of access to things like our general Discord server. You won't have the patron exclusive channels, but most of the server is public selectively. So, things like that. Try it out.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see if I can remember all the silly voices and stupid names. That's the real test of this book. Because I don't have to remember anything about the plot, because the book will just tell me.
We make our own fun here.
We have to do something to be entertained, because this book ain't doing it. Chapter 15. Though she'd never admit it, Alexis didn't really know what to expect at their first test. With all the training over the past 5 days and fiddling with various weapons and techniques, her body ached, which was another thing she'd never admit, even though hiding the throbbing pain in her limbs was nearly impossible. As Alexis and Cole entered the giant sparring room in the morning, she glanced at her competitors and remembered she wasn't the only one who hadn't a clue what to expect. I'm just going to finish the paragraph. A towering black curtain had been swept across half the room, blocking the other half from sight. Whatever lay beyond that curtain, she realized, was to decide the fate of one of them. So you can't possibly fathom what you might be doing. You've been practicing with weapons and sparring, and that didn't give you a hint as to what this test might entail? Even if armed combat is an incorrect guess, at least it would be a guess.
See, I'm just over here like, I've realized I'm not the only one who has these questions. Briefly, the main character breaks out of main character haze to remember that other people have thoughts.
Golly, it's almost like everyone in this room also has a story to tell.
Well, no, let's be real.
No,
Sarah
they
J.
don't.
Maas hasn't made backstories for any of them yet, and that marks the difference between Sarah J. Maas and just about every author I know, who have just like, you want the whole backstory for that background character that doesn't even get a line? Here it is.
And half the time we're like 20% more feral for that background character than the mains.
If it's one of my creations, I just kind of take from a pool of pre-built OCs and make them background characters.
Which is
There's no
fun.
such thing as a background character in my works.
See, that's something I really enjoy as well, because it's fun if you have fans who read your work and then you just kind of sneak a little nod to something else in the background. Like, it's fun. It's like a spot the character kind of thing.
I'm basically a one-man clamp that doesn't get any work done.
Yeah. You know that.
Exactly.
With all the heartbreak that entails.
Exactly.
Alright, let's keep going. The normal ruckus had been replaced by a rustling quiet, and rather than mill about, the competitors lingered by their trainers' sides. She kept close to Cole, which wasn't a change from the ordinary, but the sponsors atop the mezzanine looking over the black and white checkered floor were. Her throat tightened as her gaze met with that of the Crown Prince. Aside from sending her his books, she hadn't seen or heard from him since the meeting with the king.
Yeah, he's a prince. He's got important shit to do.
He's busy. He flashed her a grin, those sapphire eyes gleaming in the morning light. She offered him a tight smile in return and quickly looked away. Brullo stood by the curtain, a scarred hand upon his sword, and Alexis studied the scene. Someone stepped to her side. She knew who it was before he spoke. Oh, he's a bit dramatic, don't you think? I'm sorry.
King.
We're back to Cockney. We'll see how long it takes to turn into Aussie.
Eventually.
It'll happen.
Eventually. It'll be Bandit.
Eventually we'll get to Bandit. But right now we are Dick Van Dyke in Mary Poppins.
Doing our best.
She glanced sidelong at Knox. Cole tensed next to her, and she could feel him watching the thief closely, no doubt wondering if she and Knox were formulating some escape plan that would include the deaths of every member of the royal family. After 5 days of mindless training, she replied quietly, all too aware that very few people were speaking in the hall. I'm glad for a bit of excitement. Knox laughed under his breath. What you think it is, then? She shrugged, keeping her attention to the curtain.
Sorry.
I'm just doing this to make Ray laugh at this point. I know it's terrible. I know.
Keeping me alive.
Like, I know my voices and accents are terrible, but they make Ray laugh, so I do them. Okay? Don't come for me. More and more competitors were arriving, and soon the clock would strike 9, the time when the test would begin. Oh, at 9 in the morning? Fuck that. No, I ain't getting up. No. I say knowing damn well that I wake up at 7 every day.
Yeah, but
9 is too early to do
Let's be real,
things.
we're millennials. Like, our brains don't fully come online until about 10.
Yeah, I'm awake at 7, but I'm not out of bed.
You're kind of going through the motions until 10 a.m. hits.
Yeah, 9 o'clock.
You're like, oh wait, okay, I'm a person now.
Even if she knew what was behind the curtain, she certainly wouldn't help him. Hopefully it's a pack of man-eating wolves that we have to take on with our bare hands.
You wouldn't be able to kill a wolf with your bare hands.
She looked at him fully now, a half smile on her lips. Wouldn't that be fun? Cole subtly cleared his throat. Now was not the time for talking. Now is never the time for talking with this bitch. She stuffed her hands into the pockets of her black pants. Best of luck, she said to Knox before she strode toward the curtain, Cole following her.
This girl cannot run for prolonged periods of time without throwing up. She would die to a bunch of wolves.
I'm sure she's just joking.
Yeah.
When they were far enough away, she asked under her breath, No idea what's behind that curtain? Cole shook his head. She adjusted the thick leather belt slung low across her hips. It was the kind of belt intended to bear the weight of multiple weapons. Its lightness now only reminded her of what she'd lost, and what she had to gain. The death of the Eye-Eater yesterday had been fortunate in one aspect, one less man to compete with. No shit. Do you think maybe that's why they killed him? You fucking dumbass.
Why specifically that one kid killed him? I'm sticking with my headcanon. I've already forgotten the character's name, but I will stick by the belief that he killed him.
She glanced up at Dorian. He could probably see what was behind the curtain from his place on the mezzanine. Why not help her cheat a little? She flicked her attention to the other sponsors, noblemen in fine clothing, and ground her teeth at the sight of Parrington. He smirked as he watched Kane, who was stretching out his muscular arms. Had he already told Kane what was beyond the curtain? I have to hear curtain one more time. Brullo cleared his throat.
Every once in a while, like, people complain about, thesaurus rape, but every once in a while it's good to crack that thing out.
Well, or just find a way to stop saying, oh, what's behind the curtain? What's beyond the curtain? Just say, what are we facing? What the challenge is?
Yeah.
There's so many other ways you could
Yeah.
address this without constantly saying what's behind the curtain.
Yeah.
We get it. Okay, what's in the box? Okay, we know.
What's in the box?
Brullo cleared his throat. Attention now, he called to them. I forgot his voice. All of the competitors tried to look calm.
I've forgotten who Brullo is, honestly.
He's like...
He's the weapons... He's what, the weapons guy? The weapons master?
Yeah, he's like the trainer, like the knight's trainer guy.
My brain is just immediately goes, Brillo. Brillo pad. That's him.
Oh, it's Brullo. Silencio Brullo.
No, Brillo. Brillo pad. He's steel wool.
Okay. I'm so defeated.
Okay.
All the competitors tried to look calm as he strode to the center of the curtain. Your first test has arrived. What the fuck was that? What am I doing? I'm trying to remember. I remember he had like a fancy pants kind of voice, but I can't remember exactly how I did it.
It's flown out of my head.
Half these videos are just me going, what voice did I use for this character? And how badly will it be mangled on the next line? I am not a voice actor. He grinned broadly, as if whatever the curtain concealed was going to torment the hell out of them. I'm sorry, that just sounds so out of place.
Yeah, it feels very like Buffy. Buffy speak.
Speaking of, it's on streaming and I want to watch it this summer. So maybe after this. As His Majesty has ordered, there we go. One of you will be eliminated today. One of you will be deemed unworthy. Just get on with it, she thought, her jaw clenched tight. Yes, get on with it.
Yes, get on with it.
As if he'd read her thoughts, Brullo snapped his fingers, and a guard standing by the wall pulled the curtain back. Inch by inch, it swayed away until Alexis bit down her laugh. Archery? It was an archery contest? Gosh, do you think when they were training with all those weapons and they had targets available to train with the weapons, that accuracy might have come up in the test? That being able to hit a target might be a thing that a King's Champion needs to fucking do? Are you kidding me? Of course it's archery, bitch. And of course it's going to be one of the first tests, because the first test is probably going to be the easiest one.
And I'm just going to say over here, why is she laughing? She is experienced in bladed weapons and small knives. Like, yeah, assumedly, she is the Christian Grey of knowing how to use every single weapon ever. But realistically, if she's someone who is traded on bladed weapons, she would not really be all that good at archery. It takes an entirely different set of skills and an entirely different set of muscles in order to be an archer.
Don't worry, we're about to find out that she's better at archery than Robin Hood, I'm sure.
Yeah, obviously she's going to, like I said, be the Christian Grey of, oh, I know how to use all of these weapons. I'm an idiot.
Rules are simple, Brullo said. Behind him, 5 targets were staggered at various distances through the hall. You get 5 shots, 1 per target. The one with the worst aim goes home. There's not even like a fun twist. It's just a dead-ass archery contest.
Yeah.
I mean, fine, it's only the first test. I don't expect them to be pulling out the crazy shit yet.
What if they
you couldn't fathom
what
this?
What if they intermittently get electric shocks?
And every so often, we'll just shoot a flaming arrow at your ass.
Wouldn't that be something?
The spectators may throw tomatoes.
It's hilarious. It's great fun. Like...
Oh man, I want to throw a ripe tomato at someone just once.
Just kind of fuck.
Just once, I want to go to a Ren fair and there be someone in a stockade and there be like a thing of slightly overripe tomatoes. Like, they're not gross yet, but they're definitely gonna splatter. And I just want to throw a tomato at someone just one time. I'll probably miss horribly, but...
I mean, even an overripe tomato, that would kind of hurt. But it's like, yeah.
It doesn't have to be a real person. It could just be a dummy.
Yeah. Okay, that would be...
I just want to throw a tomato at something.
I just wish to engage in the humiliation.
I just want to throw a tomato.
I just wish to shame the...
Like, quite honestly, I could probably just buy a tomato at the store, set it on the counter until it gets a little bit ripe, and then just, like, throw it at a tree and get the same amount of satisfaction.
Yeah.
I just want to throw a tomato. It makes a funny sound.
reincarnation of your average medieval peasant vibes. I really just want to throw overripe ripe fruit at a target.
It's what I live for. I crave it.
It lives in my bones. Something I knew long ago.
Just that fucking mid-century Irish peasant awakening in me, like, throw a tomato at the British, just
do it. Well, no, it wouldn't be mid-century Irish peasant
Just
because they didn't
screaming,
have
"Wench!"
tomatoes.
Oh yeah, that's right.
They thought they were poisonous. They were afraid
To
of
be
them.
fair, it is bright-ass red. Like,
Yeah, well, it's because of it being in the Nightshade family that everyone was like, oh, they must be poisonous. And it's like, I mean...
surprise! Hey, at least they were cautious. Okay, moving on.
Yeah, sorry. Well, I mean, do I really even have to apologize? I'm sure the audience is getting way more enjoyment out of my random facts.
New Avalon lore unlocked. Wants to throw tomato.
Cannibal. Sadist with vegetables.
That's me.
Just tucks hair behind your ear. That's me.
That's me. Some competitors began murmuring, but it was all she could do to keep from beaming. Unfortunately, Kane didn't bother to hide his triumphant grin. Why couldn't he have been the champion who was found dead? Harsh. Like, I know he's an asshole, but damn. You'll go one at a time, Brullo said, and behind them a pair of soldiers rolled out a cart of bows and quivers loaded with arrows. Form a line at the table to determine your order. The test begins now. Oh, that's... Oh, no. No. So you're just having them sort that out themselves? Listen, as someone who teaches young children, who works in elementary education, no. No. These are dangerous people who are going to be picking up weapons, and you're just like, well, go have at it. No.
Like, okay.
Terrible.
Story time. So, Avalon recently came home with some foam swords. They don't even have, like, a core in them. They're entirely foam. And they were all like, oh, I might take this for my classroom. And I just said, no. No, that is not a good idea.
Why do you shame me? Why do you shame me for that? You are throwing fruit at me right now, sir.
It's true.
There is tomato sliding down my face.
But yeah, basically it's all like, no, like, if there is a will, there is a way. They will find a way to injure themselves or each other with those things. Because that's... If you give something shaped like a weapon to a child, they will immediately go insane.
I know. I briefly, like, my mind just kind of... And I briefly thought that I was teaching, like, well-behaved little young nobles. I don't.
You briefly,
I was briefly Byleth Fire Emblem.
Yeah, I was like, you briefly, what's the word that the people on TikTok use, where they, like, go to another world. You briefly shifted into Fire Emblem verse, where you're all like, I am Byleth. I'm going to teach the lords.
I picked up a little foam katana and I was like, finally, a weapon that Felix won't threaten decapitation with.
But, so yeah, the foam swords are probably not going to go to the school, but...
Finally, a sword that I can train Ignatz with.
But yeah, like, it's kind of the same vibe where it's all like, oh, you're just going to give, like, these criminals, one of whom has already been murdered. Like, assumedly, like, I'm sure there is a not 0% chance that the twist is going to be some lord did it. But assumedly, one of the competitors killed one of their own. And we're just going to, like, hand out these more weapons, like candy, that fucking Fucking Seleno certainly wouldn't shovel into her mouth without provocation.
See, now I'm just thinking of that.
God, my brain is full of fuck.
I'm just thinking of that stand-up comic talking about, the teachers getting guns.
Can I label my gun with my cricket?
You get a frantic text from the principal the morning of. Say, oh, your gun is on your desk. And you're like, I can't find my good grading pens, but sure, leave a gun on my desk.
Bring your own bullets.
Oh, we don't live in a real country.
It's true.
Anyway, I'm sorry, this broke me. This broke me in a way that, because before when I read this book, I wasn't a teacher yet. This took me out. That sentence I just read, I'm done. This might be dumber than the candy thing. Because at least, and we haven't gotten to the candy thing yet, but we will, and we'll harp on it when we get there. But that's one of the things I do remember about this book. And at least that was just Selena being stupid. This is everyone being stupid. If someone does not get shot with an arrow immediately, then Sarah J. Maas just thinks you're an idiot.
Violence immediately erupts.
Like, remember in Hunger Games? When they're like, oh yeah, right at the start of the games, we're gonna have this cornucopia right in the middle of all the competitors, and it's gonna be full of supplies and stuff. Like, there's gonna be weapons and food and survival gear and that. And Haymitch is immediately like, do not go to that thing. Book it in the opposite direction, because a good, 50 to 60% of deaths that are gonna happen in the games happen right there. Because it's a trap. Because they want you all in the same spot fighting over shit to quickly kill off a bunch of people. Run. And that's this, okay? But this is them going, oh yeah, we just got, here's just a whole bunch of quivers of arrows and bows, and you could just have at it. The real test is, are you dumb enough to walk over to that thing? Oh no, you'll go one at a time. But we're not going to decide who goes one at a time.
They're just all going to...
You line up. You figure that out.
Yep.
Okay. She expected them to rush to the long table stacked with identical bows and arrows, but apparently none of the 21 other competitors were in much of a hurry to go home. Selena made to join the forming line, but Cole grasped her shoulder. Don't show off, he warned. She smiled sweetly and pried his fingers off her. I'll try not to, she purred and joined the line. So it just goes off without a hitch. Because Sarah J. Maas thinks you're an idiot.
Sarah J. Maas just assumes that these characters are going to follow the rules. And I'm just like, okay.
This rabble of criminals, thieves, and general cutthroats. There's a handful of soldiers in here, but presumably they're probably not the best of the best.
I mean, they're probably the best of the best in terms of, strength and stuff, but I'm just over here okay, whatever you say. Oh, God.
It was an enormous... For some reason, there's a little time jump tilde here. Okay. I guess she was standing in line for a while. It was an enormous leap of faith to give them arrows, even if the tips were blunted. A dull head wouldn't stop it from going through Parrington's throat, or Dorian's if she wanted. Though the thought was entertaining, she kept her attention to the competitors. With 22 champions and 5 shots each, the test took a dreadfully long time. Thanks to Cole pulling her aside, she'd been at the back of the line, not dead last, but 3 from the end. Far enough back that she had to watch everyone else go before her, including Kane. The other competitors did well enough. The giant circular targets were composed of 5 colored rings, yellow marking the center, with only a tiny black dot to mark the bullseye. Each target got smaller the further back it was placed, and because the room was so long, the final target was nearly 70 yards away. Selena ran her fingers along the smooth curve of her yew-bow. Archery was one of the first skills Arabin had taught her, a staple of any assassin's training. Two of the assassins further proved it with easy, skilled shots. Though they didn't hit the bullseyes, their shots got sloppier the farther the target. Whoever their masters had been, they'd known what they were teaching. Pelor. Oh, that's the one. That's Fluttershy. The gangly assassin wasn't yet strong enough to manage a longbow and barely made any shots. When he finished, his eyes gleaming with resentment, the champion sniggered and Cain laughed the loudest. Brulow's face was grim. "Didn't anyone ever teach you how to use a bow, boy?" Pelor lifted his head, glaring at the weapons master with surprising brazenness. "I'm more skilled in poisons." "Poisons?" Brulo threw his hands up. "The king wants a champion, and you couldn't shoot a cow in a pasture."
He's killed a man.
Assassin. 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 Poisons is what you fucking get. The other champions laughed again, and Selena wanted nothing more than to smile with them. But Pelor took a shuddering breath, his shoulders relaxing, and joined the other finished competitors. If he wound up being eliminated, where would they bring him? To prison or some other hellhole? Despite herself, Alyssocles felt badly for the boy. His shots hadn't been that bad. It was Nox, actually, who surprised her most, with 3 bullseyes into the nearer targets and 2 final shots along the border of the inner ring. Perhaps she should consider him for an ally. From the way the other competitors watched him as he strode to the back of the room, she knew they were thinking the same thing. Grave, the repulsive assassin, did fine, she supposed. 4 bullseyes, and the final shot right on the border of the innermost ring. But then Cain stepped up to the white line painted at the back of the room, drew back his yew-bow, his black ring glinted, and fired. Again and again and again, within the span of a few seconds. And when the sound of his final shot stopped echoing in the suddenly silent chamber, Alyssocles' stomach turned over. 5 bullseyes. Her one consolation was that none of them had been on that black dot, the absolute center.
Okay.
So they weren't bullseyes. Because you said the black dart, the little black dot, marks the bullseye. Now you're saying they weren't on that black dot. So they are therefore not bullseyes. Am I missing something? Am I dumb? Has this book drained my brain cells?
I guess, technically, with the way the targets are set up, maybe the center bullseye area is larger than the black dot that is directly in the center.
Okay, so it's
so maybe, like, he technically got within the center bullseye area,
but
just not the
center. Okay. One had come close, though. For some reason, the line started moving quickly. All she could think about was Cain. Cain getting applauded by Parrington. Cain getting clapped on the back by Brulo. Cain getting all that praise and attention.
God, do you want to fuck him?
Not because he was a mountain of muscle, but because he actually deserved it. Oh, you do. You want to fuck him so bad it's making you stupid, girl. Suddenly, Alyssocles found herself standing at the white line, looking at the vast length of the room before her. Some of the men chuckled.
That's not the only length you're thinking about.
Albeit quietly, and she kept her head held high as she reached over her shoulder for an arrow and knocked it into her bow. They'd done some archery practice a few days earlier, and she'd been excellent, or as excellent as she could be without attracting attention, and she'd killed men from longer shots than the furthest target. Clean shots, too, right through the throat. She tried to swallow, but her mouth was dry. Let me guess, she's gonna get a bunch of fucking bullseyes.
Well, no, because she's gotta pretend to not be as good.
Nah, okay. Place your bets now. My prediction is that she's still just gonna beat Cain just because she can't handle someone else having attention. And then Cole's gonna get mad at her for it, and they're gonna get in another argument about how she shouldn't be doing that, and she's gonna be like, but that's stupid, I'm the best one here. And then we'll just repeat this with every trial.
See, okay, my thought is, Because Kane didn't get any directly on the dots. So I think she's going to get one on the dot just to show him up. And maybe not, like, do kind of lazy with the rest of them. And then the same thing will happen.
Okay. All right. We'll see.
I am Selena Sardotian, Adderland's assassin. If these men knew who I was, they'd stop laughing. I am Selena Sardotian. I am going to win. I will not be afraid.
Shut up.
She pulled back her bow, the sore muscles in her arms aching with the effort. She shut out noise, shut out movement, shut out anything other than the sound of her breathing as her focus narrowed on the first target. She took a steady breath. As she exhaled, she let the arrow fly. Bullseye. The tightness in her stomach abated, and she sighed through her nose. It wasn't an absolute bullseye, but she hadn't been aiming for it anyway. Some men stopped laughing, but she paid them no heed as she knocked another arrow and fired at the second target. She aimed for the edge of the innermost ring, which she hit with deadly precision. She could have made an entire circle of arrows if she'd wanted, and if she'd had enough ammunition. She got another bullseye on the third target, aiming for the edge, but landing within the border. She did the same for the fourth target, but aimed for the opposite side of the bullseye. Where she aimed, the arrow met its mark. As she reached for her last arrow, she heard one of the competitors, the red-haired mercenary named Renal, snigger. She clenched her bow tightly enough for the wood to groan, and pulled back her final shot. The target was little more than a blur of color, so far back that its bullseye was a grain of sand in the vastness of the room. She couldn't see the little dot in its center, the dot that no one had yet to touch, even Kane. Selena's arm trembled with effort as she pulled the string back a bit further and fired. The arrow hit the absolute center, obliterating the black dot. They stopped laughing. No one said anything to her when she stalked away from the line and tossed her bow back onto the cart. Cole only scowled at her. Obviously, she hadn't been that inconspicuous. But Dorian smiled. She sighed and joined the competitors, waiting for the competition to finish, keeping well away from all of them. When their marks were compared by Brullo himself, one of the army soldiers, not young Pelor, wound up being eliminated. But though she hadn't lost by any means, Elisicles couldn't stand, absolutely could not stand, the feeling that she hadn't really won anything at all. Bitch, shut the fuck up.
I just want to throw her into a fire.
She belongs in a great big fire. Oh, God. Okay, and that's it for Chapter 15. My God, what a slog. This should be where it starts picking up and getting good, and yet somehow this was the most boring archery contest I ever read.
That's because there was really no sense of, there's no sense of anticipation or tension in these, because Selena has time and time again said, oh, I can do so much better. I'm holding myself back just to stay in the middle. So there's never... And, with the whole archery thing, it's like, oh, this is the first thing I ever learned. It's all like, so basically, are all the tests going to be like this? And that it's all like, oh, obviously she's going to be fine because she is the Christian Grey of weaponry, and she is good at every weapon, and she is the strongest ever. And I'm just like, okay.
We don't even get to watch the other competitors go through it. We just get a summary of, and here's the characters that we know the names of, and here's how they did.
If that.
And it's like, we haven't really been given enough time with them to care all that much. Like, do you give a shit if Pelor gets eliminated? I don't. The only reason I feel any connection to Pelor at all is because I'm doing a fucking Fluttershy voice for this character, and I find that entertaining.
I'm rooting for Pelor to be the ultimate victor. I know he won't, but I believe it in my heart.
In the heart of the cards.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, like, there is no tension, like you said, because the reader is already aware that, oh, yeah, she could totally, like, kick all these guys' asses. the most tension we have to have is Cole gonna get mad at her because she showed off too much.
Mm-hmm. Which is, another 50 Shades of Grey thing that I hate is that, every other chapter there was an argument about the same thing.
Yeah, like...
Where it's all like, it's gonna be like, oh, she does something a little outlandish. Cole berates her for it. She sassily quips back at him. Rinse and repeat.
I'm just sitting here like... There are so many more interesting things you could have done with this. Like... And still had it, be the tests. Like, you don't have to completely change the entire plot of the rest of the book. Mm-hmm. But picture this for a second. One of the other competitors tries to take out one of the nobles that are watching. Like, let's say maybe Nehemia or someone is watching in the stands. Mm-hmm. And one of the competitors, pretends to trip or something and fires a shot in that direction. And then Selena, very quickly and stealthily, shoots that arrow out of the air. And no one notices because they weren't paying attention to her because she's at the back. Mm-hmm. That would be a great way to show off that she does have this skill. Something would actually happen in this chapter. That guy would obviously be disqualified for... doing the shit.
I want the next I want the next challenge to be something that she's bad at. Something that'll make her sweat.
I want these characters to act in any way like they are not just 100% sincerely here for the competition, because yes, fucking Selena even points out, wow, it's really stupid of them to give us bows and arrows when several people here have not earned the trust of the people organizing this. Straight up, we still have a serial killer here.
Yeah.
Are you seriously saying that they trust every single competitor to act on good faith when they're still being flanked by guards everywhere they go?
And the answer is yes.
And the answer is yes, because having one of them actually make an attempt on Dorian or Nehemia or fucking Parrington or anybody would actually be interesting. And would give Selena an authentic way to show off her skills that's not been pre-scripted for her, where she actually worries about, oh shit, if I miss this shot, consequences are going to happen.
Oh no.
And then she could be internally freaking out because what happens when she gets up to the line and she's only got 4 arrows? What does she do? Does she just skip a target and just lose the points on that? Does she admit that she also fired an arrow and risk getting disqualified because they don't know that she was doing it to save someone's life? And would she also be like, why did I even bother to save Dorian's life? Do I actually believe he might be a better king than the current guy? We don't know that. Well, that would not make sense because they haven't spent any time together.
She just likes him a little more because he's hot.
He has blue eyes.
Yeah.
And that is very important. Sapphires. He has sapphires.
Sapphire eyes.
Not amber. Not gleaming gold. Sapphire. Oh, I hate it. I hate that it would be so easy to just inject a little bit more interest into this chapter. These aren't even big changes. What I am describing would have taken all of 2 or 3 paragraphs. And we don't even get that. There is no flavor. There is no seasoning. This is the blandest shit I've ever consumed.
Yep.
It's not even fun. Oh my god. Anywho, Knox got to stay Cockney this time. We'll see how that goes in the future.
That's because he barely stopped.
Because he had 3 lines. Alright, well, that is the end of this extremely disappointing chapter. We'll catch you in the next one.
Bye.
Thank you so much for watching, and a special thank you to my patrons. If you'd like to see your name here or in the description below, please consider joining my Patreon. Your support means so much to me and allows me to continue making content. If you want to support my content in different ways, consider buying my books, donating on Ko-fi, subscribing to the channel, or even just giving this video a like and comment. Any and everything is appreciated so much. Keep growing till next time, Rose Garden!